Olá, essa é a primeira aula do curso Soluções para o Brasil. E o nosso primeiro convidado do curso é ninguém menos que o professor Noam Chomsky, que dispensa apresentações, é o maior intelectual vivo do planeta e vai falar hoje para nós sobre a crise climática e o Green New Deal global, que é tema de um livro que ele publicou recentemente junto com Roberto Pollin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The enormity of the current moment is difficult to grasp, but it's worth thinking about, reflecting about briefly. The threats that are posed are extraordinary and growing. I think there should be no need to tarry on the threats to the environment that sustains life. Practically every day, new and ominous discoveries come. Just 2 or 3 days ago, in one of the major physics journals, there was a major study, the result of a long, many-year study, on the effect of warming of the oceans on aquatic life, fish, other aquatic life in the tropical regions, which are the most luxuriant, where they abound. Turns out, I'll quote the article, marine life is fleeing the equator to cooler waters. This could trigger a mass extinction event. Mass extinction of the population of the oceans. That's an eventuality with consequences so horrendous and catastrophic that you can't even think about them. Nobody knows for sure, but that's what's happening before our eyes. You can go on with case after case. Well, the main international monitor, the United Nations International Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, overwhelming majority of scientists in the world, almost 100%, they have concluded that if there's to be any hope of keeping to livable temperatures in which human life can function and survive, then by mid-century, 30 years from now, we have to reach net zero emissions, no further poisoning of the atmosphere. 4 years of Trump in power meant rapidly, not just not keeping to the goals, but rapidly increasing the use of fossil fuels, including the most dangerous of them, and eliminating the regulatory apparatus, which gave some limits on the destruction that's being done. If Trump had been elected for 4 more years, we would probably be finished. We would pass irreversible tipping points. That's how close we are. They may come back into power, in which case prospects for human survival are very dim. Now, Trump is not alone. The Western Hemisphere has 2 major criminals, that what are called the Colossus of the North and the Colossus of the South. Under Bolsonaro, there has been massive destruction, particularly of the Amazon region. It's predicted by scientists that if the Bolsonaro policies of illegal logging, destruction of the Amazon continue, then within maybe 10 years, 15 years, the Amazon will switch from being what's called a carbon sink, absorbing carbon from the atmosphere, to a carbon source, emitting carbon to the atmosphere as the forests are destroyed and collapsed, and as the Amazon turns from forest to savanna, basically useless. It's a hideous tragedy for Brazil, but that isn't even worth mentioning, because it's a huge tragedy for the entire world.
O capitalismo já teve inúmeras oportunidades na história para demonstrar a sua completa insensibilidade com o futuro da humanidade. O senhor e Roberto Pollin, no livro que escreveram, estimaram em 2,6 trilhões de dólares ao ano o custo de todo o investimento necessário para se viabilizar um Green New Deal no mundo. Embora isso seja uma parcela mínima do fluxo de capitais que circula todos os anos no mercado financeiro, nós sabemos da dificuldade de mobilizar esse montante, ainda mais para um projeto que representa um enfrentamento a interesses de grandes corporações e de setores econômicos inteiros que seriam prejudicados ou mesmo destruídos, né, através dessa transição proposta pelo Green New Deal. Queria saber se o senhor acredita possível, nos marcos das relações capitalistas, num cenário internacional onde as formas, as instituições de governança global são muito frágeis e precárias, e também considerando o veto do Partido Republicano norte-americano no Congresso a acordos internacionais mais ambiciosos, se o senhor considera possível, com a urgência que o aquecimento global coloca, fazer essa transição nessas condições e nesses marcos.
Well, let me just say one word about capitalism. There's a slogan that you hear called capitalist realism. I mean, it says it's easier to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of capitalism. I understand what it's saying. I don't entirely agree with it. I would change it. It's easier to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the beginning of capitalism. Capitalism never began. The business classes would never permit it. Capitalism would self-destruct in no time. You look through the whole history, the business classes, the guys who own and run the place, the ones who Adam Smith called the masters of mankind, they've never permitted capitalism. They want a powerful state to intervene constantly to protect them against the ravages of the market and to subsidize them and to support them. So take agriculture, which we're just talking about, survives on huge state subsidy, massive state subsidies for agribusiness, fossil fuel industry, enormous subsidies, trillions of dollars. Take the financial industries, which are taking over much of the economy, mostly predatory and destructive. And there was an IMF study, International Monetary Fund, a couple of years ago, studied the 6 major biggest U.S. banks, try to figure out where their profits come from. Turns out they mostly come from government subsidy, which is indirect. Some of it is just bailouts, like when they crash the economy, they get bailed out. But much more significant than that is a government insurance policy. There is an insurance policy for the rich, for the financial institutions. There's a phrase that describes it. It's called too big to fail, meaning if you get into trouble, the taxpayer will bail you out. Just having that gives them inflated credit ratings. They can get access to cheap money. They can carry out risky operations, which are profitable, and if they fail, it doesn't matter. The friendly taxpayer will come and take care of you. That amounts to almost all their profits. In fact, it goes way back to the origins of capitalism. No capitalist society could survive, and the business world knows it. So we've never had capitalism. We have one or another variety of state capitalism, when the powerful state is there to take care of the important people, the ones who own and run the place. That's what's called capitalism. they have deep flaws, fundamental flaws. They can't survive forever. It will destroy us. And it makes perfect sense to work to try to change them. Worker-owned enterprises, popular organizations like the MST, many others. Yes, let's work on all of that. But the time scale is wrong. We have to solve this problem in a narrow time scale. That means forcing the existing institutions to adapt to it. All we can do is work to try to save human society from destruction. Can be done. We know the means. What's missing is the will and determination to do it. It's by no means impossible. There are good, positive signs, but they have to be worked on. It's not going to happen by itself. Sit back and watch, you get the worst. Thank you for everything you're doing. Very impressive. It's the hope of the future.